for most of us, probably reducing our phone use every day is a good goal.
I'm Dr. Christy Vo, psychiatrist, and I'm joined here with Dr. Han Ren, who we will be talking about change and why it's hard in January.
Yeah.
And Dr. Ren, you're a psychologist by training, but you do so many things. So I want you to introduce yourself and in the way that you would like to be seen and heard.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed psychologist, currently based out of Austin, Texas. I have a group practice here, but I'm a former educator. I'm still an educator, just in different contexts. I recently finished writing my first book, so soon to be published author. And I'm a content creator focusing on liberation psychology and making mental health more accessible to people of the global majority.
Yes, and I'm so excited for your upcoming book. Can't wait to
Thank
read it.
you.
I've been following your channel, and you have great content, and I'm sure your writing will be superb.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so those who are just joining in, if you have any questions about behavior change in January or why it's hard to be motivated, and how, since we have Dr. Han Ren here, how your identity really comes into part when you are trying to have some change in your life. So to start out, Dr. Ren, like, why do you think sometimes it's hard for people to change in January when, sometimes you're supposed to have that push to do things and have set goals and resolution.
Yeah, who says that we should do that, right? The Gregorian calendar, not nature, that's for
Yes,
sure,
yes,
especially as most of this country is gearing up for this big winter storm right now. We are not, we're mammals, we're animals, and this is not
yes.
a season for big growth and change just biologically. So it, kind of feels arbitrary that January is that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, I definitely agree, and I tell my patients and clients that it's okay. We're supposed to be in hibernation. And
Hmm.
I would argue that spring is when you really should be reflecting on what you want to do for the year, because that's when you really have that energy back again.
Yeah.
But, it is the Gordon calendar, and it is what it is. So for people who are trying to change, what would be your advice in terms of forming those goals, those habits that they've been trying to change?
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep your goals measurable and realistic. Start small, pace yourself, start where you are. Any change is better than no change, even if it's incremental. So, making sure that you are being realistic with your capacity, with your energy, with your time, with how your body feels, tuning into how your body feels so you can, react and adjust accordingly. I think people have these ideas like, new year, new me. I'm going to have totally different sense of self. And that's generally not how change happens in general. Like we usually change in small ways instead of major ways. Major change can happen, but it's unlikely to be sustainable over time.
Yes, I agree. And I'm happy you agree too, because that's part of the core concepts of my habit course called You Habits, where I actually use the SMART method, SMART, and that technique is actually used in quality improvement and a lot of business quality improvement projects. But I actually use that for my program, and I think it's very useful to use that format, SMART.
Yeah.
And part of that is just being specific with what people should be doing. And so when it comes to specific things that perhaps you would recommend, these are just some things that maybe you have clients working on, or you think could be a thing they can be working on in small incremental changes. What would you recommend people do?
It really depends on, your personal goals. I think for most of us, probably reducing our phone use every day is a good goal. Spending more time outside in nature, with loved ones, upping the social support, drinking more water, moving your body more. These are all just general wellness, cornerstones of wellness that help us no matter what time of year we're getting started. I also think attachment to self is something that we don't talk about enough. What is your relationship with yourself like? How do you
Yes.
grow that and deepen that?
Yes, and I think that's the first step that's needed for change is to really do the reflection. And that's
Mhm.
actually part one, step one of my course. And one thing I like to ask people is, what makes you feel alive, right?
Yeah.
What do you identify with? I actually do this exercise called identity mapping that I also do with a lot of Asian American therapists and psychiatrists. I have a session every May for Asian American Heritage Month, and we map our identity. Do
Mhm.
you use such any tools to help your clients or your patient kind of reflect? And what type of questions would you like to ask? Do you usually ask them to help them think more about that?
Yeah, I think the identity wheel is really valuable, in terms of figuring out just what are the elements of your identity that resonate and are salient for you, and how that's different than your social location or your positionality, which is how the world views you. You might view yourself in a different way from how the world codes you, either with more or less privilege. I also really like values identification types of exercises, helping people become more clear on what's important to them and identifying their core values so they can use those as anchors in their decision making. Are they living to their core values in their choices and behaviors every day?
Right, right. And I want to ask you, take a little personal spin here, and I
Hmm.
want to ask you about your journey. I know you have
Yeah.
a amazing journey, so I'd love to take a moment for you to tell that story.
Which parts? Which part of the journey?
Oh gosh, you're right. Many parts. Maybe the most recent part of your journey, like of your identity formation.
Yeah. I would say that the past few years, I've really been kind of, head down trying to write this book. And I finished it at the end of last year, and that has been more of a cocooning phase. Being more inward focused rather than outward. And it has really necessitated this attachment to self and this comfort with, time alone and time in my own mind, and really being able to identify the things that make my mind and my body feel good versus not so good. So, as someone who is very, go, 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 I think there's a lot of, internalized capitalism that us like highly productive overachievers tend to live by. So being able to slow down and being able to find more of that inner sense of self and validation has been really essential to me these past few years.
Yes, yes. So is that what your book is about? And if you were to give like a little preview or synopsis of what your book is about, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So the book is called The Hyphenated Life, Bridging the In-Between Spaces of Intersectional Identities. So it's really for people who are maybe biracial or 1.5 generation immigrants, queer, neurodivergent, people who feel like they have one foot in different worlds, but belonging to neither. Too much, not enough. There's a lot of times that people can sort of contort themselves, become social chameleons in order to find an acceptance or fitting in certain spaces. But a lot of times that comes at a cost to actually finding belonging or authenticity. So this book really addresses the major kind of coping strategies or socially sanctioned trauma adaptations that can happen when people are really trying to contort themselves, such as masking, code switching, overwork, perfectionism, and really addressing roles of shame, guilt, and finding self and community within that process.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, you just tapped on so many topics there that I have many ways to go with this conversation. But for the first point, I would like to say that when it comes to being community, I totally agree. I feel like for people to really accept themselves and really progress toward these changes,
Mhm.
having a community is so important. On my on my end, I have my course, and part of the step is actually to find their tribe, find their
Mhm.
community that can support them in whatever habit goal they have. And for me, when I
Mhm.
was trying to run the New York City Marathon, and I did run it, I
Congratulations.
really ingrained myself into the running community and identified myself as a runner first. And so I wonder,
Mhm.
there's this there's this concept that you have to start telling yourself that you are a runner, or you tell yourself you are Asian American, or tell yourself that you are queer, and accepting that label first before you can make progress. How do you agree, or do you not agree with that attestation?
I think it can be a parallel process. I think it can happen, in synchronity with each other, because sometimes you need to fake it till you make it, right? Like you're like, I don't really believe this for myself, but I'm going to go through the motions, and then over time, it can soak in a little bit more. And other times, yeah, it is like, okay, well, I don't feel like I'm quite there yet, so what can I do to feel like I'm there before I start? I think for the most part, it's really being aware of your own capacity and what feels motivating to yourself. There's that saying that action precedes motivation. Like we can't wait until we're ready to do anything. We got to kind of start before we're fully ready. Sometimes just getting going will bring the motivation. So
Yes,
being
yes.
aware of that.
Yes, and yeah, I use the CBT model in my therapy with my patients, and sometimes they are surprised for me to tell them, we have to schedule in that behavior, that goal that you have, or that self-care routine that you need to start doing before you feel happy again, before you feel motivated again. And it seems very mind-blowing for them, that because people tend to think, oh, I should only work out if I feel like it, or I should only start uh, start a certain thing because unless I feel like it. And I wonder, when it comes to January and people not being able to be consistent with the habit they have trying to pick up, how do you, and they feel unstuck, what do you recommend for them to feel unstuck or like reset?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we feel stuck, we are running on fumes. We're trying to move from a place of standstill to, momentum, but really the inertia is getting in the way. So essentially, it's getting clear on just your activities of daily living, like taking care of your body. Are you like eating healthy foods? Are you sleeping enough? Are you exercising and seeing your friends and hydrating, like just taking care of your body so that you have the baseline and the fuel to get going. And then it's a lot easier to switch directions once you're in motion. So maybe you're not going to necessarily start the thing that you really want to start, but start something, anything. Once you get going, you get yourself into a flow state, then you can switch course and do the other thing. Or sometimes you just do the really hard thing first, get it out, eat the frog, get it out of your off your plate first thing in the day when you have that motivation and energy. So there's a lot of kind of different tricks and tools. I think a lot of them are necessary for neurodivergent minds. People with ADHD really struggle with that task initiation, and we kind of have to gamify it sometimes
Yes,
and trick
yes.
ourselves into getting going.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you agree, because those parts are part of the course that I teach. Part of that is having a reward system. Cue, habit, reward system. Tracking is a form of reward to see all the checks boxes, and if people feel more motivated when they can see the check boxes, and then also be giving yourself grace whenever you
Yeah.
do miss a day. Give yourself grace, but also
Mhm.
kind of analyze it. Do a little reflection, like why did I miss it that day? It was, maybe because I slept, I went out and stayed out too late, and then so I
Yeah.
couldn't really wake up in the morning to go work out. Like, just be honest with yourself, and then like
Mhm.
set some boundaries within yourself and adjust. But there's no shame and guilt. And I wonder, in your work in interracial identity or multi-dimensional identity, do you feel that people have a lot of shame and guilt in identifying with those identity? And if so, how do people move beyond that?
Oh, I think people have shame and guilt with everything. I think
Yeah,
shame and
yes.
guilt are so pervasive, and it's just like built into the fabric of our society. I mean, we shame each other, we punish each other, we weaponize these icky feelings in order to have capitalistic gain, in order to have power over, in order to have dominance. Like shame and guilt is definitely, yeah, we see it everywhere in, the fear tactics that are being used societally to get people to comply with behaviors that are unconstitutional. So
Yes, yes.
yeah, like I think shame and guilt is at the fabric, or at the foundation of the fabric of society, and to the point where people don't even recognize it as shame and guilt. Some people think that, oh well, I don't have that, I'm shameless, like, and we don't realize that shamelessness is the flip side of shame. It's a shield, a defense against feeling the discomfort of
Yes,
shame.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And when, so in that regard, how do you help people move forward from having that shame and guilt?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to name it to tame it, first of all. You
Name
have
them.
to, yeah, acknowledge that it's there and develop the self compassion and the humility to recognize it. And that can be really hard, especially for people who, cover up their insecurities with inflated sense of self, with some grandiosity or some narcissism. It can be really, really hard for people to actually get to the root of why they need to flex so much. So I think it really depends on the certain situation, and the ways that our society treats certain groups of people in different ways. And even though it's all rooted in shame, it can manifest in vastly different ways.
And then when you also talk a lot about oppression, the capitalism system, and etc. And I wonder if, and it's clear that some system really use the shame and guilt to control people and fear based.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when do you, how can you identify when something is you should feel shame for and like move to change yourself
Hmm.
versus the system telling you to be ashamed of it and then rebelling back?
Yeah, I think it's really important to identify, is this hurting someone? Is it hurting me? Is it hurting somebody else? Is it hurting my relationships? Is it hurting something beyond a big corporation's bottom line, right? Like a lot of times we do things based on what is told, what is going to make someone else money, rather than what is good for us or our relationships or our bodies. Second of all, is this aligned with my core values? It's so important to know even what your core values are. And sometimes, as we age, we realize we have outgrown the values that were given
Yeah,
to us in
yes,
childhood.
yes, yes.
So maybe something is not in line with a childhood value, because we were raised in an immigrant household or a super religious household. But then as we get older, we have the opportunity to reassess our values and then redefine what our core values are. And then we get to decide, okay, is this in line with my new core values and what I want to,
Yes,
yeah, live to?
yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you agree too, because that's actually one of my course as well. I help people identify their core value, but I tell them it changes. People
Mhm.
change,
Yeah.
like, and even they can prioritize their core values differently. Like for example, when I was in medical school, admittedly, my core, although I still had the core value of having good friendship and good family relationship, I couldn't prioritize that right now.
Yeah.
I had to put my core value of knowledge attainment,
Mm.
my core value of curiosity and helping people above the other core value. And I think people have the uh, the 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 misunderstanding that you have to do everything within your core value at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
doing too
Yeah.
much at the same time is key for burnout. So
Yeah.
sometimes they have to recognize that this is not something I can prioritize right now,
Yeah,
and
what
not to
can
be
be
shameful about that.
sustained? Yeah,
Yes,
and I think
yes.
this is an issue that women especially have to go through because we're expected to, wear so many hats. What I tell my clients is, you can do everything, you just can't do it all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
or you
yeah.
can do anything, you just can't do everything right now.
Yes, yes, yes. Radical acceptance of that as well.
Hmm.
Especially I work with a lot of mothers during pregnancy or postpartum, and that's
Hmm.
one of the key concepts that we really help them
Yeah.
accept and still have an identity for themselves with the new
Mhm.
constraint of their reality.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's hard
Yes.
because there involves a lot of grief with the recognizing that your capacity is limited and your energy is limited and your time and your attention. And if you're going to spend more time in one domain, then where's it going to come from in a different domain? And that's okay. It doesn't have to be forever.
Yes, yes, yes. So, in your book, when you mention all these multi identities, where does do you use any? Do you help them? What do you help them change on? Like, what's the I guess what is your call to action in your book is about? Yeah, yeah, like
Yeah, I think there's several call to actions. First is, it's the ability to be a social chameleon is not a weakness. It's a strength. It's a survival tactic. So you get to toggle parts of yourself. You get to mask and code switch. And it's not necessarily bad, but don't do it all the time, because then you forget who you truly are. Being
Mm-hmm.
able to stay aligned with your sense of self, even if you have to switch, which parts of yourself you highlight in different environments, like that's essential. And then also just being able to recognize that belonging is not optional. You have to find some
Mm-hmm.
places. It doesn't have to be every space, but some spaces, some people who can really see and love you for who you are, and be able to build community around that and rituals around that. And then finally, just the role of grief. All growth comes with grief. And so much of healing as we are getting older, as adults, is the grieving the family, the parents, the childhood that we did not get to have. So grief is ongoing, and it is not something that our society does well, but it is an integral part of healing and growth.
Yes, yes, and I love it. Belonging is optional, and I think when you are saying that you're meaning the community you want to belong to is your choice. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
really stick with one community. You can find belonging
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I totally agree with that with you. And then when it comes to the gosh, I forgot the other point you said. uh, uh, um, now I lost my track.
It's okay.
I
It's okay.
apologize. But yeah, so now that we're almost close to time, I wonder
Mm.
if you have any last minute words for our viewers in terms of changing in January and what they can do to help them move a little further.
You can change at any point. It doesn't have to be January. It can be February. It could be March. It could be April.
Yes.
Don't let external standards override or supersede what your body is telling you. It's never too late, and you can take the time you need to get ready. Pacing is everything. Starting something small is better than not starting at all, and you can always switch directions. Once you're in motion, it'll probably be easier.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Hanren, and I'm happy for your almost immediate success in the next few months with your book coming out.
Yeah,
So
thank
I'm here
you.
supporting, and hopefully for those who are watching, check out Dr. Hansman's profile and support when you can.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Yes, it's been a
Go live
pleasure.
with you.
Yes.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.